Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dojo Live. And today it's kind of a very special broadcast because we're broadcasting from multiple locations, and particularly in the Focusrite event in which Matt Perez, our COO, is right now. And of course, he's been joined today by Shane Corstorphine from Skyscanner. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Matt, and of course, thank you, Kim. As ever, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much. All right. Well, I'm gonna just start with the first question, and then I'll just pass on the mic to Matt, and then he can conduct the rest of them. I know he has a lot of them. So tell us a little about your participation in Focusrite, and also the AI part of technology in the travel industry, if possible, please. Thank you, and welcome to the show.
Sure, no problem at all. Really appreciate you hosting me and having me. Focusrite, it's a great event. It sort of really brings together travel and technology, which I think is incredibly important. Traditional travel was predominantly around about marketing and sales and building travel brands and big brands, as opposed to so much around about building incredibly value-adding tech for consumers. And Focusrite has been very good at sort of bringing to the fore what's happening from a tech point of view in travel. And therefore, great to have the guys there from Nearsoft as well, kind of here at Focusrite. In terms of so what's great for us is we get to meet with a lot of clients. For me particularly, I like to attend a lot of the sessions and see what the startups are up to. It's interesting to see how people think, see the landscape of travel from a technology point of view evolving. Great to see a higher number of AI startups here this year. I think we still have a lot who are trying to deal with things like trip planning and itineraries and kind of UX related stuff, and that'll never change because there's clearly a problem there that people keep trying to solve and failing to do so. But it's great to be seeing much more kind of AI type stuff and certainly sort of data and data analysis and data science solutions there as well. So for me personally, I have a session tomorrow which is titled "The Rise of the Machines," and it's specifically talking about AI and travel. And actually, from our point of view, from a distribution point of view, is how is that shifting? So bots and voice and various other things. So happy to talk a bit more about those.
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll be also glad to ask all these great questions. So Matt, let's start with you.
So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, there was a panel where I don't know how to say it nicely, but they kind of poo-poo the whole idea of AI, like it's an overwrought kind of buzzword. And it's funny because I'm looking at it the other way. I think it's just barely starting, right? And so what did you hear that panel? Were you?
I may have missed it. As you know, it's a pretty busy schedule and jumping in and out for meetings. So I may have missed it. Am I surprised? It depends who's on the panel. There is a spectrum of tech and travel, and some are very much still in the kind of brand end of stuff, which to some degree I think is somewhat head in the sand, and others are right at the forefront of tech. There is no doubt that I think those who've been in travel a long time know that things take a long time to change, and that also might have been part of it. So I believe AI will still take a long time to change. What I think is the fundamental issue and the requirement therefore for AI is, well, first for data science, and then the AI that sits on top of that is the range of queries and choice in travel is astronomical. I mean, even from a flight's point of view, we're taking 3 billion queries a day and then looking them up in kind of a fraction of a second for our users. I mean, it's huge stuff from a data point of view. If you just look at, I want to fly from somewhere to somewhere, there, I want to fly.
You said billion with a B, right?
With a B, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's every day we're caching and looking this up, because if you think about it, you've got 10,000 airports. So that gets you to 100 million different combinations of flights. You've then got, let's say, thousands of itineraries, hundreds of different partners flying those, different times, different schedules, different prices, and then you might have different providers then selling that same itinerary. So the choice is absolutely vast. You then add into that like layers of, I want to go somewhere that's near the beach, and I want to go somewhere that has the sun shining, and I want to go somewhere that has a 5-star hotel and a spa, and I can only travel at this time, but you tell me when's the best time to go because I'm kind of flexible. All that kind of stuff. You know, if you say that I can travel any day this year, you're at the kind of 365 squared times your 100 million times X, Y, and Z. It's massive queries. It's huge data challenges. And so part of that, that's where the data science bit initially comes in. Then you've got how does the consumer actually articulate that to be able to in their own way narrow down that search to the right solution for them. And that's where it starts to get really interesting. And that's, you know, so I think we're seeing, you know, we now power Alexa, we've got Facebook bots, Skype bots, various different bots. And it's interesting now to see how consumers are starting to engage and how they want to ask the question that allows them to get to the answer. Skyscanner has kind of always been to some degree at the forefront of helping people filter. And we have, I think one of the strengths of the Skyscanner product is the filters that we have down the left-hand side, which are kind of like, I want to fly before 10 a.m. in the morning, or I want to arrive before X time. Or so you could start to flex your itineraries like that. But realistically now, if we were going to solve the real traveler needs, we'd need like 100 different filters down the left-hand side, not the 5 to 10 we currently have, because you'd be saying like, I want to go where the weather's like this, or for this amount of time, and all the rest of it. And that, from a UX point of view, is not doable, which is where voice and bots and AI starts to get really interesting, because you're narrowing that massive data set very quickly in the first place. And running those queries is huge. So you have to be able to filter and narrow massively before the person's even engaged, pretty much just on what you know of that individual. And then you're then moving to voice or whatever it might be to allow them to articulate their question, if you like.
That's really fun. Like for me, for example, it's like a lifelong dream to go whale watching. And I'm so close. I now live in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. We're just an hour from the Sea of Cortez. And like something as simple as that. Like, is it whale watching season? Like,
yeah.
But I mean, clearly you can't have "is it whale watching season" as a dropped box, you know. So that's where something a bot could pick up on and be like, "Why no, it's not. May is," or I don't know.
It's exactly that. And the amount of content that goes in, it's a brilliant example. I mean, well, that's pretty niche. Or now I'm based in the US, I have to say it's pretty niche. But it's true. I mean, that's what how people want to look and want to go and explore the world.
I really like that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
You don't think about a machine being so human, but that's a way to integrate it.
Indeed. And a machine can never be human, but actually, even for a human to be able to query that is pretty extreme in terms of the number of different queries that have to do. But actually, your simple question you could Google in seconds, couldn't you? So it's pulling that together and then creating the right experience around about it that I think is going to be fascinating over the next. Realistically, it's still going to be 5+ years, I think, until this stuff is really super good.
So what are you what technologies are you using today? What are you planning to use in the future? So I imagine machine learning is a big part of it. Voice, are you guys working on voice, or can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the interesting stuff we're starting to experiment with is both bot and voice. So we now power Alexa. So you can run Skyscanner queries through Alexa using voice, and then we have bots. Right now we only have bots in English language, but it's interesting even to see the engagement increase from when we first went out early in the year. You know, month on month, we're seeing sort of 200% kind of growth rates, or quarter on quarter, as more and more people are starting to engage this way. And what's interesting is the queries are getting shorter as people start to figure out how to use it. Like kind of initially when people started to use mobile devices, it took them quite a long time. Then they get faster and faster and faster because they figure out how to make that work. So we're seeing the queries and the time get shorter, but interestingly, we see a higher conversion rate on bot than we do on our mobile devices, you know, which is incredible in terms of how people are starting to use this to query. So no, we're pretty excited about it. We're right at the start, we think, of that journey, but also I think we're pretty close to the forefront of what people are doing in this space.
Is it more mobile than laptop or desktop, or do you have an idea?
Yeah. So we see the majority of our queries coming from mobile now, and it's great because obviously the business being global, we have a big Asia presence, and actually it's nice. We sort of look at Asia as a lead indicator for the West, which I know a lot of people in the West may not necessarily see that, but it's we see it as a lead indicator for what's happening, and I think I'm right. I mean, certainly in high teens of people in China. This is not a Skyscanner stat. This is just a travel stat. But people who have booked on mobile, it's in the high teens the percentage that have used voice at some point to do a booking. Now, you have the different character set there, which means that voice is actually a lot faster than
Right.
typing. But even so, as a lead indicator, if they're being able to book travel using voice in large volumes, it's just a matter of time until that spreads west. As we saw with the shift to mobile, we saw it first in Asia. It's much more extreme than mobile versus desktop over there, but it's coming west as well.
What kind of on the engineering side? So, what's your biggest challenge? What are you dealing with?
Yeah, so I think what makes Skyscanner very different is the direct connect model. So, a lot of travel companies will be heavily reliant on GDSs to get the live pricing, whereas we have 1,200 direct connects with partners. Now, that means you're dealing with probably of those 1,200, probably every API is very different. Some of them are pretty ugly, and you're trying to do real-time live pricing queries, but at the same time, you've got to figure out how to get your caches to work so that you're not permanently hammering somebody's API to make sure that they're happy with the kind of strain you're putting on their system. So that is what has always made Skyscanner entirely unique, is our ability to add thousands of partners in a direct connect way. So when you move into fragmented markets where perhaps there's a lot of low-cost carriers who do not have pricing available through a GDS, that allows us to have much better coverage of flights and prices than others may have who are solely kind of operating with GDS reliance. And that in fragmented markets like Europe and then Asia and Latin America for us is growing incredibly quickly. It's a huge advantage for us. It's also a massive challenge.
Well, that means that you can get to inventory that's usually not in the GDS space, like Airbnb or whatever. Those kinds of new things that are coming up.
Exactly. It's first and foremost, it makes us a data company. Is how we see ourselves, that does travel, as opposed to a travel company with some data. We're building this stuff. We're weaving it all together. We're looking at look-to-book ratios. We know when to call a certain itinerary, when not to call a certain itinerary, with all the data science we have sitting on top of it. It is incredibly difficult to do and to maintain because every API is always changing and such like. But it's a huge strength. You're not going to get some of the smaller low-cost carriers in Asia or even in Europe or in Latin America through standard distribution. Whereas we will have them on our site. That leads to super high retention levels because of product market fit and the strength of the product. And that super high retention levels leads to a massive amount of direct traffic coming in compared to others who may be acquiring a lot of traffic. We acquire very little. We have a huge amount of retention and direct F4 traffic.
No, so we have some experience with integration and working there with APIs. In some cases, the client has even asked us to scrape their site because they don't have an API. Yeah. And it always takes a long time. Not so much technology, but the specs are not quite what you expect. And you try it and it doesn't work, and try it again. It takes a long time. So have you guys been able to get over that? I mean, the idea of doing thousands of these is scary.
Yeah, we have, and we've built an organization that kind of lives that way. That's exactly. I mean, we've got a number of clients. Yeah, as you say, we're whitelisted and we scrape them because that's what they have asked us to do, and they're not at a stage yet where they've got an API or whatever it may be. And then we've got to be able to scrape them in a way that, because of the massive volumes we see, we don't take their site down. So it's knowing when to scrape and when not. If somebody's coming and browsing our site, they use the cache prices And then as they get closer to the showing the intent to book, we then will query and look for a live price. And therefore you can see some movement on Skyscanner between the initial browse and the final price. But if we always go for a live price from the very start, we'd be taking down partners' sites left, right, and center, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's smart. I know that you don't have a whole lot of time because you have to be back in about 5 minutes or so. I don't know, Kim, did you have any questions, or Carlos? I didn't want to.
Go ahead again. You were going to say something?
I was just interested. It seems to me that streamlining it and doing this in a much more direct way, like your bookings and retentions, like I'm assuming that your customer service and the back end is lower or better, and then you get lower complaints or the lower need to then react in that way. Is that a benefit you're also seeing, or is that just a wrong assumption on my part?
Yeah, so it depends where the customer service sits. Most of the customer service is queries relating to who they've booked the ticket with. So someone will come through Skyscanner, we'll help you narrow your query from I'm wanting to fly from X to Y, or I want to fly somewhere on these dates, whatever it might be, down to finding you the right partner. Once you've got that, you'll then book with that partner, and it tends to be that customer service sits with that partner. What we have introduced is partner quality score, which is the star ratings that you'll now see against partners. And this is a first move away from price comparison to product comparison. And that's effectively a booking experience comparison. And in that, we also have customer service that feeds into that star rating. So that's been a major shift for us recently. We've seen a massive increase in how people now select in terms of choice. It used to just be they'd go on the cheapest regardless. Now we're seeing people move away from the cheapest and actually move towards a balance between price but also booking experience. And that's great, because what you can then see is guys who have great customer service and great booking experience can actually potentially charge a premium for that service, and customers will be happy to pay it because they'll know it's a better experience. So we're moving to the product comparison in terms of the booking experience. Then there's other stuff we're starting to test as well in terms of allowing people to compare the product from a seat pitch point of view or whatever it may be, as we see Meta evolving over the coming months and years.
That would be great if people actually pay for a better experience, and then that would get us decent interfaces. Because so far, I don't know, no comments. But Carlos, do you have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I know we're still 3 minutes away from wrapping up, but if I may, like to ask you a quick question. And reviews seem to have to be a must-have feature in order to build reputation. So what are some of the pitfalls, if any, of course, that you have witnessed with the implementation of the quality ratings feature? How did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I think, the driving force behind it was we have tens of millions of users coming through every month, and they don't benefit each other by having them coming through. Whether I had 5 users a month or 50 million uniques a month in excess of that where we are, there was no change in product. Yet really people ought to benefit from other people coming through. So that's what we were trying to add is benefit. And actually, it's been, I think now some years actually that we've been collecting this data. So the challenges are a few things. One is there's a major UX challenge. How do people think about it? How do we make it clear it's about booking experience rather than the flight experience, for instance? So we had a lot of work to do around about that and testing that and making sure this was going to work okay. And this was a multi-month project. It wasn't something we just thought that'd be a great idea, let's test it. It was working with UX groups, working with teams, testing it. Then you've got the partner relationships, and we've got to talk to them a lot because partners are hugely important to us, and explain why we're doing it and explain how we're approaching it, and actually give them time almost to change their operating models to ensure that they are giving suitable customer service and other things that they know they're going to be scored against, so they're not suddenly downgraded. What's really interesting is obviously we can do it by market and we can do it by device. So actually, partners have taken really well to it. Once they kind of got their heads around the fact that this is going to happen, now they're coming and saying to us, well, look, can you tell me in which markets I'm bad? And you can say, well, actually, it's mobile in this market. And then they can actually discover they've got a problem, or they've got a payment problem or a localization problem in Japan on mobile where there's something wrong with our site that we hadn't realized, and the users are now telling us. So creating that feedback loop back to the partners it's proving to be a win-win from a user's point of view, from a Skyscanner point of view, and now from a partner point of view as well, which is great. But you have to be really sensitive with how you roll these major changes out.
Okay, thank you so much, Shane, for your comprehensive responses. And unfortunately, we need to wrap up today's broadcast. And the only thing left for me to do is, Shane, is just a big thank you for having agreed to be here with us today. And now, Matt, Kim, do you have any final words or questions for Shane? If not, then we'll just wrap it up and let you guys go and continue with the fun and focus, right?
Yeah, thanks for your time, Shane.
Yes.
Really busy, so.
It was great, Shane. We'll be sending you the uploaded the whole episode today, and so you can view it and share it with your network. And we'll again thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.